Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So, welcome to the show. Today is Thursday, and this is going out live on Mintwave Radio. If you have the Alexa skill, you can just ask her. Otherwise, go to the website above to download the Alexa skill. And if it's via podcast, you can also download the app for Apple and Android, and you can see the whole week's schedule of all our wonderful hosts. Feel free to subscribe to any, follow any, and leave a comment. This is episode 177, and today we have Alexander Richmond, who is an NLP practitioner, success and mindset coach. And we're going to be talking about the power of forgiveness. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and therapists to get their message heard to the people who need to hear it. Now, Alexander is an absolute wonder. He's an author, international speaker, an NLP practitioner, leading authority in leadership, transformation, and performance coaching. Now, not only has he traveled the world providing workshops, giving lectures in Asia, Europe, America, his step-by-step proven system as people move from stuck to free and discover their true potential to gain access to what is possible in taking action to create a happy and fulfilled life. Now, he's going to share his story here, but his life's journey led him to discover his power and purpose through exploring both wisdom and healing. He was a political prisoner. He experienced both physical and mental torture in former communist East Germany. And through that experience, he discovered an inner strength and the capacity to forgive. So, Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's a pleasure for me to be here. It's an honor.
So, before we discuss the topic of forgiveness, I suppose your backstory will help shape that maybe a little bit, because there's probably not many people who have experienced what you experienced. Would you like to share that story?
It's a long story, but I make a long story short. As you mentioned, I was a political prisoner in East Germany, and while in prison, I started there. I don't tell the whole background story. I'm writing a book right now, which is coming out by the end of the year. Or is finished by the end of the year. I don't know if I make it to the printing, maybe beginning of the next year. However, going back, while in prison, something profound happened. It's, as I just tell you a story, I was in a prison cell in Bautzen, laying on the ground with my ribs probably broken. I never found out because I had never been to hospital afterwards or had x-rays done. They just left me on the ground and I was knocked out, and I was probably out for several days, in and out. And it was a close death experience, near death experience, where coming out of it, when I came back to it, so somehow I was just laying there trying to get into my chest, trying to breathe a little bit. To this moment, all the way from my imprisonment, it was like 13 months, 14 months approximately. I had been there in pretty much isolation the whole time. There were just a very few times, and I believe that they were even spies or Stasi themselves, who just tried to manipulate me, trying to get some information. However, to that moment, all I had like anger, rage inside of me, and not to be proud of in any form or way. In fact, it scared me a little bit. I would have been, if I had been released before that, probably like even a terrorist. And that's nothing to be proud of to mention here, but that's how much rage and anger was in me. I just want to retaliate, as far as like I felt being a victim to that point. I felt betrayed. I felt used. And I don't know how to describe. There's so many words I can choose to describe how I felt in that moment, all the way up to that. But while I was laying there, I looked at the wall, and up on the wall there had been some ants just going up and down, like a whole trail. And I watched them, and somehow it gave me some peace and peaceful feeling inside. And I don't know how it came, as if someone put a question into my mind to look at it, to observe what is going on. And the question was, what does it take for someone to inflict so much pain to someone you don't even know? And only thing I could come up with when I put myself in those shoes is I had to be enraged. Just as I was before, I had to be angry, mad, obsessed with something just to hurt someone else because I felt so much pain. And when you come from the point where you realize the same pain I felt in that moment, wanted to retaliate, I could see that must be within them. And all of a sudden, it's kind of, I broke down and I felt sorry for them. I didn't know how to describe. I was 18 years old of age at the time. And I was in a tough sports. I wrestled. I'm an Olympic wrestler, and I also world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wasn't at that time, but I wrestled. So those are tough sports, and I have a high pain tolerance. However, in that moment, you feel, I don't know, it's a feminine energy which came over, and I felt forgiveness. And that set me free. All of a sudden, in that moment, when that realization came, it set me free in a way that I didn't have to hold on to being a victim anymore. I was not any different than they had been, just at a different point in timeline. But when I realized that I was not any different, they're not any different from me, we're all the same. And how much, I don't know what they went through, but they must have gotten through something to feel such a rage, such anger against me. I didn't see it even personal anymore. So I felt almost like a pity on them that, oh my God, what they have to do. But I was in that moment aware. And when you're aware of it, you step ahead. Because right there, I realized I set myself free. Take it on. Whatever you have to do, I'm already there.
Wow.
And from that point, forgiveness, like whatever happened, I started looking at it. And my path is not just consistently. I'm not saying I was like, from that moment on, I always was in self-development, one way or another, if it was my body, my mind. So consistently went on. But we also lose track. And just like the way I became a world champion, I look at it as it's all in a practice. And when we look at something like we set a goal, we have to know why. Why do we want to get whatever there is we want? And then we set a direction, and with that, we have to look what kind of options we have. And for me in that moment is also, I want to go forward. I don't want to be stuck, because when you're stuck, when you're a victim, it's just, if I go like, I want to go from one room to another. I open the door. So I grab the handle. Imagine that, just envision that. I grab the handle. And if I hold on to it, how far can I go? And I see that in any situation where you become a victim. So forgiveness is a crucial part to move on, to set yourself free. And to forgive is not, as we know, it's not to forgive what was done. The action could be something, there's no excuse for it. I can do something, there's no excuse for it. However, forgiveness is mostly for myself. I can forgive them because there was nothing more available to them to act differently. Because we have a choice, right? We all choose. And from what we do, out of it comes what we get. And it could be something desirable. If I go to work, I work hard, I make lots of money. But it also could be in consequence, just like how I got money there, I can do something which is terrible, considered terrible, and then I have to face the consequences. If I hurt someone, I could be like here, if I just go out and hurt someone, I could be arrested, thrown in jail. If I killed somebody, I could be in there for life. Or it's like anything I do, I'm responsible for, and I have to claim that responsibility, not keep looking on the outside or blaming others that, for what I have or
It's a
not.
very difficult thing for some to really understand that. What you went through, a lot of people would have heard of Nelson Mandela's story, and some would think like, how can you come out of such a similar situation to you, right? Been in prison for so long and come out with so much forgiveness. But it does make sense. You cannot, I truly believe that nobody that is happy can do a bad thing to another person because the frequencies don't mix, right? However, and this is what I battle with personally, I intellectually can understand that, but I could understand because that means you would have to forgive absolutely everybody for anything they've done. And I would think if somebody hurt my child, how could I not get over that wanting to retaliate or wanting justice or revenge? Because do you think that's where so many people are? I suppose you've said it already. They're stuck.
Well, like I
How do
said,
you get there? How do you get
it's a practice. I'm not saying I'm always good at it. Like I give you another example, and that's not in my bio, but my son passed at age 21, and that was just a few years back, and it was an accidental overdose. His friend, who was or still is an addict, wanted to help him out by giving him some painkillers, which were laced with fentanyl.
there?
And he had, because he was probably not clear in his mind the same way as my son had not been, it's hard to share for me. He had an accident and he was in so much pain, he was just looking for something to get some rest. And his friend, who was also a roommate in his house, they were together since early childhood and went through school. And anyway, he gave him pills he cut up into smaller pieces. But when you cut up a painkiller, which is for 24 hours or so, you get an instant release because there's no layers anymore. You get everything, whatever there is, instantly. So my son had not even been thinking, added up the half pills to full pills, as much as he can take, 3 at a time or something. I'm not sure. I'm not so familiar with it, but I came out of the autopsy later on. He would have taken the right amount and been good at if it wasn't cut up, and also if there was not any fentanyl on top of it, how it was laced. And he fell asleep and never woke up. And even there, I could have blamed someone. But what's the point? And the difference was, I decided a project, I wanted to create a healing center. And not just one healing center, I want to create multiple. And I worked on one, I created one in Oregon, my wife and some friends, and I started there. We were on a board, but for me, it was only to create it and to go on and to create another one and go on. And this is now in Oregon, and I'm glad it is there to help people. Anyone who is in pain, suffering somehow, it leads to addiction often, because whatever it is, like you think about a person and has depression, how many women or men choose sugar or something. Or you have so many forms of addictions we can go into and talk about it. And how do we deal with it? And it's not easy. So, first of all, I had to forgive and then to see what really was going on. There's pain and suffering. And in fact, it added more to it because now he was a good friend. He felt more guilt and it added pain even for me because you can see it. But ultimately, out of my experience, that's my attachment, that's my pain, the attachment to it. However, we have to forgive. We have to forgive others. And also important part is, which I learned years later, because that's a part I did not do in that prison cell, for example. I forgot to forgive myself. And
Oh,
I didn't even know until, and I have my own coaching. I have coaches around, mentors around. I always like to progress, get better and better, find somebody new. There was a cheek from India who made very clear that my suffering is coming from not forgiving myself.
ah,
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was in my blind spot. I couldn't see it. And he didn't tell me what it was. He knew it, but he wanted me to see it. So I struggled there with him for probably a 2-hour session, just on that one thing. He said, it's obvious to me, but you have to see it. For me, telling doesn't make sense. And then and then we came up and he said, so go back into the prison cell. What had you been thinking of? What could you have, is there something you could have done differently? Or so he played with words and somehow, I don't know what he said exactly, but all of a sudden by saying, what could I have done differently? What have I not looked at? What could be forgiven? So I forgave them. Is there something, what could I have forgiven myself for? And it clicked. It clicked so easily, then it came all the way together that I blame myself for, because I spoke my mind. And for that, I got arrested. I was seen as a traitor. And that's what brought all that together. It's unbelievable here. People don't understand. You just said something, and for that, you got thrown in prison, tortured, and there was even a chance I wouldn't have made it out, and nobody would have known, because those cases happen too. And so I blamed myself for my family suffering. I thought if I had not opened my mouth, if I had cooperated and made the statement they wanted me to do, and my family would have had less suffering, my mom and so on. And I'm like, that's the part. All of a sudden, it came just like that. And when I freed myself of that, I gained so much energy, because everything is energy, right? And you mentioned frequencies. Oh, that's great. What frequency we operate on, it's the level of energy we have to take actions going forward, right? So when you come from a low frequency like shame and guilt, there's not much energy to get out of it. So you have to get rid of the shame and guilt. And how do we do that? We have to forgive ourselves for whatever we think we can be shamed or guilty by. And also the others, because they don't see it yet. They have to go through the process. And we can't force any outcomes. We have to let it be naturally. Yes, I can help as a coach, when I go out, I just point into the areas through my questions where to look. It's not, as a coach, we don't tell what it is. That's a counselor. A counselor tells you something. But there's a lot of assumption behind it. I like my clients to really see and discover for themselves what it could be. And then just proceed to see how is that then working for them going forward.
it really, it is all about somehow we're just not conditioned to be curious enough about ourselves. So what you've just said there, or what I've just taken from that, is the fact that yeah, I suppose thinking about it, yeah, we're taught to, yes, we've got to forgive them, and I hadn't actually ever given it a thought that actually forgive yourself as well. But if that's totally unconscious,
It is.
yes, how do people know that's the thing?
Often it's not a known thing. In the same way we are conditioned, you're somebody, and I'm somebody, and everyone else is somebody. And that's what we had been conditioned in. And we're growing into that certain role. And also in society, right? First, you were given a name, and then you're a girl, I'm the boy. And so all that information was given to us. We call it knowledge, but I call it justice. It's information. Yeah, do I use the word knowledge too? Yeah, because sometimes I have my own knowing. Because for me and my belief, that's my knowing. I believe there's a God or whatever, you can call it whatever you want to. You call it Charlie, but it's a higher power. There's a higher power, and I'm a part of it. Because when you create it, you're a child of something, and I have to fulfill a purpose. And what I found out is it's my journey. It seems like you leave the home, you go on your journey, but then you have to go back home. Because if there's unity, there's no separation. Every religion speaks of unity and so on, and I'm not going into religion, and it's all fine. However, when you label something and you come from a knowing, a total knowing, without questioning anymore, and even when I say I have a knowing, means I take a stand until I find something else, but I'm still open. Okay? So, because soon as you know something, you close the box and nothing can go in or it comes more out.
Very true.
But when change is a constant, we have to look at that. Is change a constant? What we learn. So then nothing ever will be the same again. Even if we can tell or see or recognize in a moment, it might be very subtle. We don't know. But if change is a constant, whatever we hold true today, how can that withstand into the future? There's somewhere it's a tipping point and something else has to be. If I hold my hand, you see the back of my hand, and I slowly turn, there's a point you can see the back of my hand anymore. And it also appears different. For a long time, it could be the same thing, but that's like in my practice, I always question things, ask, and then look, evaluate. Does it have integrity? Integrity for me, there's so many different descriptions, but it has to be 100% whole and complete, and it has to be sustainable over time, over long time. That's whole and complete, meaning that's workable, that's working for me. And that entails including like moral aspects. When you lie, you might get away for it, or with it for a short time. And you have to keep up with it.
I haven't got the memory. I haven't got the for it.
If you have a lie somewhere, you lie to yourself, and we always do. How often did you tell yourself you couldn't do something, but you never really went for it? As most of the times we just assume something, but we really don't put the energy in, or we don't have it due to getting shamed or guilt. Because when somebody calls you crazy, you want to do what? You start a radio show? Are you crazy? No, whatever it is, you have those people around you often who steal your dream. And they tell you something where you are put in doubts, or they put doubts into you. and you keep dabbling with it. Are they right? Wrong? We have all these judgments, just like everyone else. But if we practice letting go of the judgments, just let go of the judgments. So what? I'm here to have fun. I have an experience. How do I get it otherwise? And you can take it. It's not that you do crazy jump over Grand Canyon, for example, like we have here. You just take a small jump. When you practice, you get better over time. You get to know your strength. You get to know what you can do. And as you keep practicing, all of a sudden you surprise yourself when you look back. Because look at us. We went through all these schools, from elementary school all the way up, universities, and some with multiple degrees and PhDs and all that stuff. We learned so much, even though I don't think it's very relevant what we learned there.
Because it's
All the,
out there. It's the learning about out there, and we
right.
don't seem to be taught about going within.
And that's the conditioning. We're not supposed to. We are told what is. And we also we rather feed, because that's how we had been conditioned, on the fear. It's a great motivator. If I make you fearful enough, you will move. Trust me. You know, who wouldn't? If you're fearful enough, you get out of the way. And that's a great way to control and manipulate people, and often had been done. If it by governments, by organized religion, or others, and I don't want to, it's just a fact. That's just a part out of the history, right? And however, there is also, but that's not the whole truth. That's not the whole truth. And we have to look, and that's where forgiveness comes in. For me, what would be useful for me to just make them wrong? If I just make them wrong, I separate, and I separate even more, when my true goal is to create a unity. And everyone wants that. I don't believe there's a single person on this planet who does not want the unity. However, each one has a different vision what it looks like, because we can't agree on things, because everyone has their own knowing. But if we could let go of the knowing, just use the information and look at how's it working? How's it working for us? Or is not working for us? But if something is not holding complete, so either it's broken or missing. But that's the opportunity, because we live in a place of abundance that was provided for us. Even though often we told, and that's a marketing thing too, living in scarcity. Oh my God, buy it now, tomorrow it's gone. The deal is off.
Yeah.
If you don't get it now. And that's like how we don't respond, we react. And that's a conditioning as well. But when we step back, and now since COVID actually did, I like the fact that COVID actually has a positive within all that horrible.
I think so too. I
What
think
there
there's
is.
a lot of positives that have come out of it. I'm not going to say that there wasn't, it was horrendous, but
It
I
was.
think that a lot of people, they had an opportunity really to go within.
Exactly. And I can see that. I really see it all around me. And I'm sure it's like, as I travel a lot, I see it all over the place. There's lots of work to do, and there's nonstop work to do. And also, when we think about, we're talking about forgiveness. So if you have not done the forgiveness, then you're still stuck being a victim of something, right? So the point is, you can't move. And if you can't move, then, where do you want to go? All that becomes wishful thinking, I call it. So you really have an idea of something, but something is broken or missing. Because, like, for example, you have no energy. If you have no energy, it's just you might have that Ferrari, and the Ferrari has no gas. Would you push it down the street? No, what good is a Ferrari then? That's a potential sitting, but it will not fulfill on it. You can fulfill on what you want to get out of it when you don't put gas in. So we have to see ourselves where we're at. So if you want to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, right? You have to ask yourself, and you have to be sure of the why. Why do I want to achieve it? And so many people talk about it. That's a simple thing, goal setting. You have to have the why. What is next? What do you need next? I'm asking you, Karen, can
Oh,
you tell me what do you
well,
think?
once you've found your why, you've got to have a burning desire to make it happen.
Well said. That would be Napoleon
Oh,
Hill, a burning desire. I love it. So the burning desire that's the energy, right? The tank is full. What would be the next step?
to take action.
Okay, you take action. But actions are what? They're going directional, right? Action towards my
So you
goal,
need your roadmap. You need a
right? Perfect. As you need a roadmap, what do you have to establish first? I give you the map. What do you have to do now? What's the first thing?
focus on just that next step.
Which direction will it go? How do you know? That's
You got to follow the map. You got to read the map.
You can read it as long as you want to. If you don't know where you at on the map,
Ah,
I can, after I have my why, my burning desire, all that, I need to know where I'm at in order
yes.
to go into the right direction. So it's just like a GPS. You turn your GPS on. If it can't get a signal where you're at, it can show you on the map the location where you want it to go. You can always find that, but you can't get direction until it knows where you are. And
Right.
that's often what we have to do. For that, I have to look within me, inside of me. Where am I emotionally? What is going on? What am I capable of? And all these things. Where are my limiting beliefs? So if I don't have my tool chest full with the tools needed to get the job done, there's no integrity, meaning something is missing or broken. And that's you go just the way you said. I take one step at a time. My website, for example, called Easyology. Easy dash ology. So easy means little issues, right? Comfortable, you can handle. Something is easy. And ology is a study of. So often when we're overwhelmed or when we see a project or whatever it is, you start a business, you're an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, what it's needed. And then how do I go about it? And often we make mistakes because we think, okay, I have to save something here and I can do it. I replace it. But is it in my best interest? If I don't have the skill set to do, like, for example, bookkeeping, most people have a great idea. They're doing something great, but then they're lacking in paperwork or something else. And they're afraid of spending money to put people in place which are excellent with that. And often, if they don't do that, they will fail because they do a halfway bookkeeping. I keep a receipt. I have a box here of my receipts. I take it. Some point, I will look at it when I have to pay my taxes or whatever it is. And then we get behind this and that and create all these frictions until we really get stopped in our tracks. And later on, we go back and say, oh, yeah, it was not the right time or whatever we point out there. But going back, and that's the places we have to forgive ourselves for. We have to forgive the others who slowed us down because they put doubts in our head. They wanted to steal our ideas. Often as family, people we are close to, friends. There's no point in getting angry and mad at. We want to build relationships. Success for me, it's all in relationship to the positive relationships you have built over time. all negative relationships, meaning where I'm in disagreement and fight about or something, it has to be at least neutral in order for me. Either it's neutral or positive, what builds success. And anything in competition negative, for example, takes away from it. I tell people like entrepreneurs when I coach them, I said, going in competition, there's friction. There's a way you can do that and you might win, sure. However, it's always a much better approach when you set yourself apart. You become something what is not existing yet. Or you have something else. You have different clients. You have because you created some coffee. Taking coffee shop for example. You have the Starbucks. You have Starbucks over in England too, right? Yeah. So you have a Starbucks there, and we have Panera, Einstein Bagels, and all these. They have all these different coffee shops who do the same thing pretty much. The bagels taste a little bit different. They have different coffee brands and so on. But they all cater to a different crowd in their marketing and everything else. So that's how they set themselves apart. And for me, when you set yourself apart, I can have a coffee shop and a coffee shop and another coffee shop right next to each other. And sometimes here in the US, at least, you can find that.
Oh, you have that here too on every high street.
Yeah, we have right here in Arizona in Tempe, there's a Starbucks and an Einstein Bagel right door to door. Some people like the coffee there better or whatever it is. So they don't go always by price point, but it's the message you send out. You have to have a clear vision and mission statement so people know what you're in business for, what you want to put out there.
And that's another, I suppose, that again, that's going back to why people get so stuck. And I do think that's a real shame. And which is why I suppose we're doing what we're doing, because I noticed a common theme that all you different coaches are doing different things and solving different problems. You're not in competition. There is no competition. And like you say, it's not just a price point thing. Somebody will just like that. I've gone into coffee shops. I think I prefer the milk they use in that one as opposed to that. So everyone has their preferences. And I suppose it's when people give up on this, look, it's okay. Some people will like me, some people won't, and I'm okay with that. I think that was a big thing for me because starting out and you're like, who am I? And you have these imposter syndrome feelings but I suppose it's all in a way the same thing because it's all a lower frequency and it's a lower energy. If you're having those feelings of fear and doubt, again, like what you said right at the beginning, they're lower frequencies. So there's no energy in you to even overcome all this stuff. Is that people collaborated more, imagine where we'd be.
It's true. However, when you, I want to hit on, you mentioned something with the coaching industry. We're so conditioned to fear that even, and I don't want to name exactly who, international coaching company, who also is producing coaches through their program, but creating through the media such a fear. If they don't go through their schooling, what kind of coaches you end up with? And I don't want to go into very details. However, I feel it shouldn't matter. Like we have all these certificates and we have all these schools out there to get degrees and I'm not saying that information is not important. It's very important. And also the implementation of it, the information we receive to make things work. However, when somebody is in the coaching industry, for example, producing like a fear of or saying it's a threat to the industry because our industry is not very regulated, right? So now they want to create a standard. But as soon as you create a standard, you limit yourself. Because The same way we have take subject like ADHD, ADE. It is a label for something, and so many people are labeled with that, and they already have a fault. Okay, something is wrong with me. So you're shaming and guilting yourself. Yeah, I can't do it at school because it's not made for me. And that's right. It's not made for any of them because they follow a certain standard. That's the way it has to be. Even though standard helps us in ways, in areas, to proceed much faster and more efficient.
But
However,
there's not one size fits all though, is there? So
no, there
that's
isn't.
why
There
some
isn't.
might work with others and others might work better with somebody else. It's just
But I want to point out that conditioning because really, if let's see, who cares who calls himself a coach? So whose responsibility is that? You have a responsibility to find something. Like I go in a store and I buy something, and it comes with the warranty. Go to someone who gives you a guarantee that what they promise you, they fulfill on. I do that, for example, 100% money back guarantee. If you don't get, what you're looking for, I help you to get there. And if you don't get it, and I'm telling you, if you follow my program, you will get what you're looking for. And that's a guarantee. It's 100% money back guarantee. So what do you have to lose? And if I don't have what you're looking for, I can't make any money. And there's so many coaches who struggle. And why do they struggle? Because they don't have enough references yet. So if you want to come to me and want to be coached, you probably will ask me, or even if I start off, when I started off, I give free coaching. I give you something, and if that doesn't work, and we go step by step, just like you do anything else, either it's working or it's not. Do we create results, desirable results for you or not? So you can choose immediately to leave. Yeah, you take a chance, and the chance is your time is valuable. But I just want to point that out so we don't have to worry about who's out there. It's not
yeah.
something like you build a house. If that collapses on me, I will be dead. But in a coaching industry, I just don't get it. And there's certain areas where it can be looked at as well. But I just want to point that out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just think there is the right coach for everybody out there to meet them where they are at that time. And I've had a variety of coaches throughout my years, and they were all right for that time. I wouldn't have even understood what some of my more recent coaches have said. It would have gone straight over my head. So this idea of competition is crazy. But again, I'm sure it's an unconscious thing and it is stemming from fear, even if they're not aware of it.
Exactly. That had been done over generations because you always had coaches, mentors, and so on. And my grandson could be my coach.
And I'm sure that he has been at some times. There's always something we
Creative.
can learn from. You can learn things from baby. You can have these
He
aha moments from young kids, can't you?
He sometimes asks the right questions and keeps me accountable.
There it is.
That is the key. The
There it is.
accountability, because we cannot keep ourselves accountable often. And that's because we have entitlement and all these other things too.
Oh,
and it is in the
100%.
practice. We all get to the point where what we think is desirable for us is actually not the things we need. More desirable would be being in the trenches, feeling the pain. So later on, we really can realize what true joy and pleasure is. And the pain, when we go through it, whatever we have to do, that's an accomplishment. That brings us to fulfillment.
Uh-huh.
It's not the money in the world. It's not like the big house you have. Nothing of it it's not yours. You don't keep it.
No.
But we feel like we have to have it. And now, since COVID, even with people going tiny, I think some of it is extreme. I can't agree with it. But that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean who's to say. If it works for you, all power to
Exactly.
you, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
So, who do you work with? Everybody?
I pretty much anybody who is coachable, and that's something I have to find out. The price point for me, it doesn't matter so much because it's more I have priorities in a way of who I want to work with. Because sometimes as a child who is an addict, and it speaks to me personally because my story. And if I can make any impact there, I don't need anything from it. However, they have to put something out. They have a payment regardless. In which form? It depends. If it's a CEO of a large corporation, it could be a large amount I'm asking because he can. And I use that money usually in my projects going forward. I don't need a huge house and car and for myself, even though I want to downsize. It's too big.
There you go. But not too extremely, Alexander?
Not to an extreme. I want to go from 3,500 to 1,500. That would be, and that will happen soon. So anyway, but I work, yes, going back to the question, I work with anyone who needs my help, and then I prioritize. If I can give them my time, we will find and make arrangements if it fits. And if somebody else, of course, I hold up to all my commitments. Whatever I committed to, I don't break those commitments. The commitments have to be broken by my clients if they choose. But
And have you found throughout your years of coaching people, have you found a common thread, as in like what we've been talking about today about the power of forgiveness? When it comes down to it, have you noticed that quite often that one thing can make a massive difference to them?
the one thing is a consistency, being consistent, taking a step at a time. It's just like anything else. You want to go a distance, you go take one step at a time. And often, even when you fall, it's not important how often times you fall. It's more important how often you get back up, right? And it's really going back to easyology. Break it down to small steps you can handle. And even though if you fail and keep failing, I don't care how long you keep failing, there's a tipping point where you will succeed. And as long as you have that belief that you will succeed, you can see yourself doing that. And that's a mental practicing. Meditate. Meditate and see yourself. That visualization. And visualization for me, it's actually the biggest part. You have to see yourself in the way you want to be. If you focus on how you not want it to be, that's how you always will be then.
But that's the key, isn't it? And I get it, because that can be a challenge unless you are practicing daily the tools, I suppose you're talking about, things like meditation. Because I have found, so years ago, I thought, I'm going back 20 years, my goal was to own my own fitness studio and then buy a house. I wrote it. It was probably, you mentioned Napoleon Hill. It was not long after I'd read that book for the first time. And I did the Bob Proctor You Were Born Rich program. And my goal was, my 3 goals were have my own fitness studio, even though I was teaching around London, freelancing, quite happy, own a house and drive a 4x4. And but I was detached, and this is what I struggle with. Again, I get it intellectually, that I was detached from the outcome. And the short story is, yes, 5 years later, we ended up living in the Algarve, Portugal, owned my own fitness studio, bought a house on the back of it, and ended up driving a 4x4. However, since then, there have been many times I've failed other things many times. And I feel that it was because that wanting it, really wanting it, was coming from a space of lack because I didn't have it. And for me, that being detached from the outcome can be the most challenging part of it. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes perfectly sense. However, like here again, I said it's a practice because when you look back, what does it do for you today other than you can use it in a way of you did something
Yes, I know
and
it works.
this
That's
worked and
it
did this,
works.
yeah, what worked and what didn't work. And instead making it wrong and holding on to, just go, okay, what was missing
Yeah,
or what was broken and had to be fixed. So right there, you're already ahead of everything else because I'm learning English still. Because when I came here, I didn't speak a word of English to the United States. And it was interesting for me. When I'm writing my books, it's so funny. Grammarly, I'm using, and I have a chapter and it has 300 or something issues. It tells me on the site. And everything looks red and blue in the beginning. And then I work my way through. However, it's like sometimes we're focusing on that and we're making it of something that there is not enough I can get. However, it really comes down to the experience. How did you use what you learned from there? And everything is a gift. I want to stress that everything is a gift. And someone just the other day said to me, like, how can your son's passing be a gift? And I said to him, for me, the gift is that I realized a whole bunch of things. I worked my way through grief. I learned to see other things I was not aware of before. My friends, my son's friends, for example, things I turned my back towards it. I don't want to be associated with or whatever it was. However, the issue doesn't go away if we don't look at it. And here's another thing. I learned the meaning of life. It's like I said before, you leave the home, you go on a journey to have experience to learn. That's for the universal consciousness. Where's that information coming from? And it's still growing.
yeah.
So it's my purpose. And I'm not my body, I'm not my mind. We had once a discussion before, and it's hard to explain. We only have
We've
short
only
time.
got a few minutes. I know. It's
Yeah.
lovely talking to
But I
you.
will discuss it on my radio show.
Yes.
However, we practice from the time we become somebody, we practice already detaching ourselves. It's a process, self mastery. If you wanted to go or believe in self mastery, what do you have to do? You have to detach from the labels others have given you, right? You have to get away from it and really see who you really are. You're so unique, as no second other one like you. Unless you believe in a body, there might be somebody who's like you, maybe even have a twin or something. However, there is, even if you had a twin, there's always distinct separations in between. There's nothing ever alike. And for me, it's a practice going back home. There have
Right.
been books written before on, and obviously all the information I got from somewhere else. However, I make it mine, what works for me.
Yeah.
And that's basically what life is. I make my life work
Yeah.
by taking just other leads. And
Yeah.
sometimes I explore on my own just to see, and maybe I can contribute in a way. But so far, all I can put forward already had been way back.
Yeah. It's true. Oh,
That
look,
is,
Alexandra, it's always an absolute, and we've had a few conversations in the past, and it's always you're an absolute wonder. to talk to. So thank you so much for your time today. For the listeners, if they can't see your details down here, how do they get in touch with you just before we go?
It's mycoachrichmond@gmail.com. It's an email. My website has everything. easy-ology.com. Easyology.com.
Easyology.com. Fantastic. Look, and I look forward to, I'm honored to have you become a host on the station as well. So really looking forward to that. So yeah, thank you once again. And to the listeners, I will be back. Have a wonderful weekend, because I will be back on Monday with a coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.